Thanks for being here this afternoon. Welcome. I'm Dusty Ferentz with the Kings County Farm Bureau, and you all know, but we're going to talk to you a little bit about the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, or SGMA, today. And if you didn't sign up when you walked in, we've got a couple of sign-up sheets so that we can email you and send you some information following today and keep you up to date on our efforts with SGMA as they go on. So with that, this is going to be an informal conversation. We'll ask questions. This works best if it's interactive, so feel free to ask questions as we go along. We'll have questions and answers at the back. But if you do have questions during the presentation, please stand up, and Tiffany will bring you a microphone. We're recording this today so that we can put it on the internet and people can watch it and learn about what we have to say today. So with that, we'll get started. First of all, a little background. We're talking specifically about the Tulare Lake Subbasin. It's a little bit hard to see here, but the county line is here. So you can see that these 5 colored areas are groundwater sustainability agencies, and they cover the majority of Kings County, but not the county in its entirety. So we're kind of talking about the middle section of the county today. In the slides, we refer to this abbreviated TLSB, and we talk about GSA's, groundwater sustainability agencies. Those are the colored areas in that picture there. So SGMA is a law in California designed to achieve groundwater sustainability, ensure that we've got a sustainable and usable groundwater supply in California for generations to come. But a key component of that was local control. Local agencies were created to create groundwater sustainability plans, determine what sustainability should look like, and then work to achieve sustainability. And that local control component is very important and something at Farm Bureau that we are fighting very hard to protect. So we talked about this becoming a law. 2014, it passed through the legislature. Then Governor Jerry Brown signed it into law, and it went into effect January 1st of 2015. So we're now 10 years into this process. A little bit about GSAs. They had to be formed by June 30th of 2017. And to form a GSA, to be part of a GSA, you had to be an agency with land use or water use authority. So water districts, cities, counties, agencies like that could get together and form a groundwater sustainability agency and then work on a groundwater sustainability plan. For us, Kings County is involved in one of the GSAs. Up and down California, these things look very differently, but typically they're water districts and counties that are doing this work. So the Tulare Lake Subbasin was deemed a critically overdrafted subbasin by the Department of Water Resources, which meant we had to have a groundwater sustainability plan created and submitted to DWR by January 31st of 2020. Unfortunately, that GSP was deemed incomplete by DWR. 2 years later, January 28th of 22, the subbasin put together a second GSP. That one was deemed inadequate by DWR. And really, there's a lot of confusion about that, but the short answer is DWR didn't think there was enough detail. It lacked some clarity, and therefore deemed it inadequate. Okay, so in March of 22, after that second submission, we found out about the inadequate decision, and then in October of 22 is when we learned that DWR was going to send our plan to the State Water Resources Control Board. And that is when we learned we would go before the board for a probationary hearing, which happened in April of 2024. Tiffany pointed out to me this morning, a year ago, we were in Sacramento, almost to the day. Today's the 9th, so in a couple of days, we're at this for a year. So on the 15th of April last year, the State Water Board put the subbasin on probation. And that came with a few implications. First of all wells had to be metered. All the information, all of your pumping would have had to been reported to the State Water Board so they knew how much groundwater you're using. When you registered your wells, another part of this probation. It would have cost you $300 per well to register. And also, you would have paid a $20 per acre foot fee for every acre foot of water that you pumped. All of these fees would have gone to the State Water Board. They would have been in addition to any local fees you might have had to pay. And the state would have used these to create an interim plan, which I think is on the next slide. In April of this year, the State Water Board would have been able to enact an interim groundwater management plan in the subbasin had we not sued. And what that means is they would have limited the amount of groundwater we could have pumped in the subbasin. This was never put out in writing anywhere, but we had it on good authority that that number, the allowable pumped number, would have been at or below a half an acre foot per acre. So not much water. And I think half an acre foot was generous at that time. So Farm Bureau couldn't stand by and watch this happen for a lot of reasons. The probationary designation was problematic and illegal for a lot of ways, So we decided to sue the State Water Board for placing us on probation. And we had a 30-day window from April 15th to do that. So we had to act quickly, and we did. So let's move ahead to July of 2024. This is our first date in court. The Superior Court judge here in Hanford offered a tentative ruling, and she told us that morning that she was likely going to rule in favor of the State Water Board. Yeah, that was a shocking announcement that morning. But we had our time in front of the judge. We got to argue our case, and the judge turned around. She ruled in our favor, and that day issued a temporary restraining order against the State Water Board, and that stopped everything. No well registration, no meters, no fees paid to the State Board. So saved our growers a lot of effort, a lot of money, and a lot of trouble. We were back in court in September of that year, and the judge extended that temporary restraining order by issuing a preliminary injunction, and that injunction stands today. So no fees, no implications from probation on landowners just yet. Now, what has been interesting is the State Water Board appealed that preliminary injunction, and that appeal has stopped everything in our trial. So we can't do anything until we hear from the appeals court out of Fresno what they think of the appeal on the preliminary injunction. Now, keep in mind, no matter the decision from the appellate court, we still go to trial at some point in the future. We still argue this in court in front of the judge that has already heard it. And I failed to mention that back in September, the judge told us that we will win on 4 of our causes of action, and we are likely to win on the other 3 causes of action. So it's important to know we've got a really strong case here in court, that we are very confident we're going to win, and then the State Board will appeal again. So this is a long way from over, but we're doing good work and we've got a good case. So I think the common question, or a common question that we all get, staff and board alike, is what we're trying to achieve with this lawsuit. First and foremost, stop fees paid to the State Water Board that won't benefit the subbasin in any way. Secondly, part of our lawsuit has been, and part of our arguments have been, that the State Board and the Department of Water Resources look at each subbasin and each plan differently. There's no continuity between our subbasin or a neighboring subbasin in any direction. And our lawsuit is actually starting to change that already and make sure everything's looked at on an even playing field, which is important so that we're competitive with our neighbors. The third thing that we're trying to accomplish is create a little bit of time for our local subbasins to create groundwater sustainability plans that don't bankrupt everybody in this room and the rest of the county, but at the same time satisfy the law, SGMA. And at the end of the day, what we all need, what we all want, is to protect the water supply in the South Valley and in the subbasin. So that's what we're trying to accomplish. We talk about this a lot, and this is a small example of the value of Kings County agriculture, excuse me. When you look at on-farm jobs, you look at manufacturing, you look at trucking, and a few other sectors in our economy, they're all agriculture specific, and they make up 1 in 4 jobs in the county. And there's not an industry in the county that's going to make up that job loss or those economic losses. And as just kind of another point of reference, in 2020, agriculture paid $33 million in property taxes to the county. And half of that, a little over half of that, almost 17 million, went to benefit the schools in the county. If we can't farm, if we can't employ people, our property values fall and everybody is impacted. The only larger employer in Kings County than agriculture is the county itself. So without us, there's not much left. This is important to everybody here. So you guys all came to learn about SGMA and our efforts. We're going to ask for you guys to help a little bit. We talk to growers and landowners every day that don't realize how important this is, that this is going to affect them if they live on an acre, if they farm 10,000 acres, or if they live in town. But it's going to affect all of us. We need you guys to help spread the word, tell people, tell your neighbors, your friends, your family about what we're doing and about SGMA itself and how it's going to hurt all of you if it's not handled properly. And all of this comes at a cost. We've invested nearly $400,000 just in attorneys' fees to date, and we haven't gone to trial yet. We're a long way from over. So we are asking for a financial contribution, $15 an acre if you own land. And if you're a business in the area, we're asking for corporate sponsorships. And Tara right here is happy to talk to you about what those might look like.
I can stand up briefly. Hi, I'm Tara Brousseau, and trying to help the Kings County Farm Bureau with some outreach to individuals and businesses. To both individuals and businesses in the community. So my contact information will be up on the last slide also, but not only are we, as Dusty said, looking to for an assessment for any acre farmed for the land that you may farm, but also businesses can contribute corporate sponsorships. We have a few different levels. We have a flyer in the back, and it's sort of been everything from $1,000 to upwards of that, of course, but every little bit helps. I think something also of interest is that we've received donations from all the way as far up northern, from Yuba Sutter, because there's a lot of other industry businesses throughout the state that realize that the result that we're going to get from this lawsuit is going to set a precedence for others. There's already other subbasins that are in probation throughout the state. And so what we're trying to do is establish a precedence, establish the state, force their hand to make them say this is what the acceptable requirements are, rather than this really vague, this is inadequate, this is insufficient. They're using a lot of those broad terms. So there's not a lot of really straightforward guidance for these subbasins to be able to create their plans and make it acceptable to the state. So, I ask if you do have businesses or business contacts, feel free for people to reach out and contact us. One of the other pieces is because of the designation of the Kings County Farm Bureau, the contributions for our efforts are essentially can be tax deductible. It does go to the Kings County Farm Bureau, but is a completely specific SGMA Defense Fund, so it's not commingled at all with the Kings County Farm Bureau monies. And there are no requirements at the state for us to disclose those particular donations. So I do think sometimes there might be some concern of, well, I don't want to be involved, or I don't want my name on anything. And just know that any support at any level that you're able to give to the Kings County Farm Bureau, Sigma Defense Fund, those things, that remains anonymous. Our list is anonymous, and so you'll be protected at that. So I just want to make sure I'm clear so no one has to worry about that. So I think that's it for my part.
Okay. So we are getting pretty close to the end of our presentation here, but there's a few things, if nothing else, that we hope you guys walk away with today and kind of remember. The Tulare Lake Subbasin has no implications from being on probation right now because of KCFB's lawsuit against the State Water Board. You guys have all been saved a $300 per well registration fee, $20 per acre foot pumped during the last irrigation year, during this irrigation year, at least. It's likely going to go on for another season or two. Our lawsuit has started to change the way the State Water Board and Department of Water Resources look at groundwater sustainability plans up and down California. The Tule Subbasin to our east had a more favorable decision out of the State Board, specifically because of our lawsuit, and the same thing in Kern County to our south. So we really are making a difference, not just in Kings County and our subbasin, but for all of California. And really, this is going to go on for quite a long time, 24 months, 36 months, pretty easily. The appeal, we are completely stopped until the appeals court gives us a decision, and then we have to plan for and go to trial, and then it's likely that the State Board is going to appeal a decision again. So we're a long way from the finish line here, but we've got a good, strong case, and we're doing good work that's making a big difference here and everywhere else in California. And that's the end of our presentation, but now we can get to the interesting part, and we want to hear from you guys and answer questions and see how we can help any of you out in the crowd today.
Don't be shy.
Yes, sir. Let Tiffany bring you a microphone.
Okay, you stated that the different GSAs are operating local level, but I've been going to, our particular South Fork GSA, with Chris here, and they seem to be following exactly what the other GSAs are doing. They bring them to our meeting and they suggest them to us, and if we vary at all, they push back, and it's like they're representing us in Kauai and all the other ones, and we're here in next to the river in Kings County, and it's not true, And another thing is that our meetings, I don't know how many entities are involved, 168. There's only 7 or 8 farmers that show up, and that's sad, And I think we got to do something to get more people involved in this, because it's going to hit them over the head pretty quick, and that's just my statement,
Yeah, we agree. A lot of GSA leadership is looking towards neighbors who have approved plans, and they're trying to glean what they can from the plan, trying to get a plan passed. And you'll have to decide as a grower in that agency if that works for you. Yeah. And as far as getting people there, boy, I wish everybody showed up. We've been standing on every table, yelling every time we can, trying to encourage growers to show up to GSA meetings, and we just can't seem to get them in the room in the numbers that they probably should be there.
Hi, I'm Rosalinda from Assemblywoman Macedo's office. I've talked to a lot of GSA members from different basins, and been watching this for the last 2 years. Do you think it's something where people can come together and put these lawsuits against the state before they get to the probation status, or do you think you have to actually be in that situation before you can levy a lawsuit?
Well, I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to offer anybody legal advice, but it can be difficult to find grounds to sue on, and you've got to wait until the opportunity is there. And that's where we found ourselves with the State Water Board. We identified 7 things that they did illegally when placing us on probation. So we specifically challenged those 7 items,
Gotcha.
Not the designation, broadly.
Gotcha. Oh, thank you.
You guys can't be that quiet. This is the easiest Sigma conversation that's ever happened if those are our only questions.
Dusty, you can elaborate on this a little bit more, but one of the things about setting the precedent now about dealing with DWR and State Water Resources Control Board, as we've seen with the Greater Kauai and the Kern sub-basin, is that we have to set a precedence that with those agencies that we're not going to be pushed around, because these plans are going to be reviewed every 5 years, and so you got to set a tone that the rules need to, the goalposts need to be set in place and not moved around, and they can't make rules up on the fly because every 5 years these plans are going to be reviewed, and they may come up with shenanigans again to put you on probation and do all those types of things. So you got to get in the fight now and early and define the rules so that they don't play games all the way to the end of this deal.
Yeah, Chad, you bring up a great point. Part of what we challenged the state on was California's administrative law, which is the law that's in place that makes sure that when a bill becomes a law and it's then or enforced by a regulatory agency, that it's done so uniformly across the state. And for a lot of years, probably decades now, agencies like DWR and the state board have looked at that pretty loosely because they've not been challenged. They've not been questioned about their decision making. And that's a lot of what our lawsuit is forcing them to do, is look at not only the Tulare Lake Subbasin, but every GSP and GSA in the state through the same lens and judge that plan or those plans with the same criteria. And Chad's exactly right. In SGMA, GSAs have to report every 5 years on the progress they're making towards their plan. So no GSA is ever not at risk of being placed on probation or having the state take over. But in doing what we're doing, we're making them look at plans through the same lens. We're making sure that the state board knows that they've got to do things legally, or they're going to have a fight on their hands to implement plans the way that they seem to want to. Yeah, Helen, let Tiffany bring you a mic. Got to be mic'd.
Come on.
Dusty, can you elaborate on how this is going to affect everyone, not just agriculture, small landowners with domestic wells, cities, the people that live in town? Eventually, it's going to come to them.
This will affect everybody in time. Growers are kind of the target of SGMA to begin with, because they look like the bigger water users in an area. But cities use a lot of water, and we see subsidence around city well fields all of the time. So every water user really will be affected. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet, but cities won't be exempted from this for long. It will come to light that city well fields or concentrated pumping contributes to subsidence and lowering groundwater levels, and therefore the trickle down is, pardon the pun, that the cities will be impacted and likely restricted at some point in the future.
Excuse me, the Minimus users in San Luis County, they're going after those. Those are the small, below the two
2
feet
acre feet, yeah.
threshold.
Yeah.
They're redoing theirs now where they're going after their water and putting fees on their water, so it is going to go after everybody. Nobody's getting away with it.
Nobody's going to get away with anything, and de minimis feels exempt right now, but you're exactly right. If plans don't achieve sustainability quick enough, if the plan doesn't change the water level fast enough, the screws get tightened and nobody is exempt. And it's gonna vary from GSA to GSA and subbasin to subbasin based on how groundwater levels react. Right here, Tiffany.
Is Kings County Farm Bureau the only one suing the water board?
Yes.
Out of the whole state?
Out of the whole state. The Tulare Lake Subbasin was the first subbasin to have a probationary hearing out of all the subbasins in the state. There were 7 deemed inadequate in 2022. We were the first to have a hearing. We are the only ones to sue. It's an interesting question. I wish I knew why, but that's why we're here.
Has there been another one designated in probation? Because the ones that have come up, they've kicked the can down the, Kern and and Frederick Witt.
Yeah, the Thule is technically on probation. They've got some kind of good actor clause exemptions. There are a couple of GSAs in the Thule subbasin that don't have to pay fees, for instance, but still have to report. And we brought that up at our probationary hearing for good actors in the Tulare Lake subbasin. We're told that that wasn't an option at that time, but less than a year later, the Thule did get that consideration, and we're told that's because of our lawsuit. But to your question, there's nobody else challenging this. It's the Tulare County it's the Kings County Farm Bureau, 2 of our board members, and everybody that we can get to contribute that's fighting this. It's a small but mighty group making a lot of waves in California water policy right now.
Is there any public information on the lawsuit and the 4 cases you say have a good chance of winning? And then on the other 3 that are likely to win, do you have any further information on what exactly that entails?
Yeah, it's pretty technical legalese. I didn't put it in a presentation here. I can put together a kind of a summary report and email it to this group if you guys sign up, and try and make it digestible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just to kind of get an understanding of it.
Yeah, a lot of it's around administrative procedures.
okay.
Yeah. For example, the way that the subbasin was noticed of the probationary hearing didn't comply with the APA, and that was one of our challenges, for example.
So during this wait time, some committee is working at putting together a plan that you hope the state eventually will say yes.
Correct, yeah.
But can you even move on and get any further since you, I mean, getting information, state's not going to help you at all.
No, and it's not really the state's responsibility to help us with that. These local agencies are responsible for putting together their groundwater sustainability plan, and that's what they're trying to do right now. Before probation, there was one groundwater sustainability plan that covered all 5 GSAs, and that was actually seen as very favorable by the Department of Water Resources. Unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, the subbasin has decided to submit one plan per agency. So we're likely to have 5 plans in the subbasin. I think that the 3 southern GSAs down here pretty well have their plans figured out. The Mid-Kings River and South Fort Kings GSAs are actively working with stakeholder committees and their boards of directors to update plans and get them ready to submit to the department.
And they may do that at any time because they're not suing.
Correct. Correct.
So you're just going to use their verbiage and write it into yours because, no, I'm kidding.
As far as plans being submitted, Farm Bureau is out of it. We're keeping the State Water Board at bay, and the GSAs are working on their plans, and they need to submit those to the Department of Water Resources, and we're trying to keep everybody in their appropriate corners.
But they're not talking.
That's correct. The State Board interprets our lawsuit in a way that they refuse to speak with GSAs in the subbasin, and DWR sees the subbasin as a State Water Board problem at the moment. The law is very clear that that's not the case, but you still got to convince humans that they've interpreted something incorrectly. So that's another kind of uphill battle that we're working on right now. On April 30th, at the St. John's Hall in Hanford at 9 a.m. At 9 a.m., we have another informational meeting like this planned. If you saw value in this, tell your neighbors, tell your friends to come check it out. If you have more questions, come visit us and ask away. We'll be there to discuss this for as long as the audience wants to hear about it. I'm sure we could talk about it all day, every day.
Do you have any politicians besides Ms. Macedo's representative, talking to you guys or getting your information or?
Yeah, we talked to a lot of electeds at a lot of different levels. There's a lot of uncertainty about there's a lot of willingness, a lot of desire to help, but no clear path for electeds to influence this right now. Farm Bureau board members, we've got 4 in the room, it looks like. would you guys raise your hands, let everybody see you in case they want to ask questions of board and not the staff?
I was just gonna go the other way. If you don't wanna ask a question, I'll call you at your office.
Good for you. See, turnabout's fair play, right? Yeah, yeah. And we are available for questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's my cell phone number. Call, text anytime. Tara's around. You can call her and talk to her. Email us. We're on every online social media platform. We've got a website, an electronic newsletter. We're doing everything we can to make you guys aware of what we're up to. Okay. Easy crowd today. Thank you. Thanks everybody for being here.